Greetings, rogue trader. Welcome back. I'm your tutor, Hal, and today I'll teach you a few of the things that I know about Calradian politics, in light of what's currently happening in the distant corners of our galaxy. There are some naysayers who might say, Bannerlord has no politics, it's all a sham, I tell you, we need mods for that. And to that I respond, you are partially correct. It's true, politics on our continent are rather rudimentary, but they still exist and can be exploited, especially by someone with your unique set of abilities. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What are politics anyway? For us Bannerlords, they're all about the relations you cultivate, the money you exchange and the territories you share with your fellow nobles. So it works pretty much in the same way as on another tiny blue dot in our galaxy. There's also a variety of kingdom policies which have different effects on the common folk, but who cares about them? Today I wanted to teach you about all of those aspects, but because I'm planning a lengthy trip to 15th century Bohemia, I'll only teach you how to use your newly acquired negotiation tactics in order to make a lot of money and even build the largest kingdom on the face of Calradia. Throughout your travels across the continent, you engaged in trading, raided your competition, made a few noble friends, and even witnessed a rebellion or two. Perhaps you were the one who caused all those rebellions in order to profit from the chaos, as I've taught you. Whatever the case, you've gained knowledge about Calradia's economy, developed a fearsome reputation, and gained the ability to convince the lords of the realm to trade fiefs with you. Today I would like to teach you how to make the most out of the everything has a price perk, but we can't talk about it without first mentioning some problems. You see, if you are hoping to get a fair deal as you exchange some random town you've recently conquered with a lord's castle, you'll be sorely disappointed because the barter system is supremely unfair. You're not having a deja vu. I've actually said this exact same thing in my Rogue Trader build guide, and as soon as I did, I mentioned that I've written an entire paragraph on it, which was supposed to be narrated today. It's a good thing I didn't include it in the original tutorial because, as it turns out, the system is even more rigged against you than I initially believed. Let me give you a concrete example. Because I wanted to learn more about fief trading, I brought some of the most powerful nobles in my kingdom into a small council meeting. 11 of them, with me being number 12. I then asked all of them how much money they'd want for their capital cities. One asked for $500,000, another for a couple, another said 6 mil and he can part with his town. We also brought a lady to this meeting who has been elected head of her household instead of a man, as tradition dictates. She demanded all of my 11 million dinars, plus all of my castles and my own capital city, and that still wasn't enough. I had to throw in 46 of my horses and only then we'd shake on it. All in all, Farzana valued her city at about 17 million dinars.
Just like a woman.
I entertained the possibility of meeting her ridiculous demands for an entire 5 seconds. Time in which another idea spawned in my mind. What if I expel her clan from my kingdom? So I did just that and we kept the city. In a couple of days, the Greater Council will have to pick 3 candidates and vote for them. But I have the final decision, if I'm willing to spend some influence. Until election day, however, the town's ownership is temporarily transferred to me by default because I am the king, so I get to do whatever I want with it. If I wasn't a rogue trader, that would be the end of it, but remember, everything has a price. I then asked my small council how much money they'd be willing to pay me for it. The Sturgeon Lords offered a little over 300,000, one of my Imperials offered 500k, the same as one of the Aserais, with the highest offer coming from Iyalas, who said he'd pay almost 2.1 million if he had that kind of money lying around, which he didn't. None of them did. I had to determine how much each lord values this town by seeing how big of a discount they'd give me if I offered to buy their fiefs and throw Quazira in as a bonus. If I were to purchase this town from Farzana, I would have paid about 17 million. Let's be indulgent and round it off to 15, just so my blood pressure won't rise any higher when I think about it. The lowest offer was for 323k, which is 2% of the price I'd have paid, and the highest offer was for 2.1 million, which is almost 14% of the asking price. I could drive you insane if I talked all about the money and the numbers I've discovered during my research, but I will instead skip to the conclusion of all of my experiments. Buying a fief from a lord and trying to turn a profit by selling it to another is a big no-no. I'm not saying it can't be done. Perhaps you could purchase a rundown ghost town for about 200k and with the help of a skilled governor, turn it into a thriving megalopolis that can fetch a couple million when sold to the highest bidder. But that isn't the best use of your ability, especially when you consider the fact that naturally, none of the lords carry this amount of money on them anyway. But I never mention a problem without having a solution prepared. In fact, I have several solutions and you're going to love them all. So let's quickly recap the issues. Number 1, fiefs are too expensive to be bought outright. Number 2, the immense barter penalty make your possessions inherently less valuable than those of the Calradian nobility, meaning that the price you'd get for a town varies wildly between 2 and 50% of its value. Number 3, even if a town can fetch a ton of money, most lords won't have that cash lying around, so you'll often have to settle for even less. But we worked pretty damn hard to be able to walk up to a lord and say to him, "Everything has a price, even your towns." So let's see how we can still use this perk to our advantage throughout all stages of our campaign. Mere moments ago, I mentioned that you can profit from rebellions in order to build your skills and reputation, but this will be even more profitable after you've fully developed your business acumen because you see, my favorite way of putting my abilities to good use is waiting for revolts to occur naturally, and as soon as I get the news, I spring into action and take my party to the city that's just declared its independence. I then launch an unprovoked attack upon one of their villages or their patrols and immediately surround the town and start making siege preparations. When I do this, I never blitz. I either build trebuchets and bombard the city while starving out its inhabitants if I have trade goods I intend to sell at a high price, or try to organize a clean assault and rapidly take the city with as few casualties as possible. When we claim the victory, I usually show mercy to the town because if I devastate it, my men will damage the local infrastructure and it costs more money to build it back up than I get from pillaging everything. Also, the more intact the city, the higher the price I get from selling it. But if you choose devastation, this will have a severely negative impact on the loyalty of the locals, and that resentment will carry over to whoever buys this town from you, which might cause the townsmen to rebel again, and soon, allowing you to repeat the process. It's always good to have repeat customers, just make sure the town doesn't go rebel before you sell it. Whatever you do, whether you show mercy or cruelty, the next step is looking for a buyer. From my observations, a town of a certain culture will fetch more money when sold to a lord from that same culture, but doing so will stabilize its loyalty and you might miss out on those repeat customers I mentioned earlier. Which is why I prefer to sell these formerly rebel towns to lords that belong to a different nationality. So if I've conquered, let's say, Karban Seth, I check its information on the Wikipedia page and see that it's Battanian. Who do I sell it to? Not a Battanian. Battanians have no money anyway. I then browse the encyclopedia and start looking at other kingdoms, checking out the financial status of every clan. If I find a rich one, I inquire about the last known location of its patriarch and try to arrange a meeting. If he has over 100k, preferably more, he'll be the proud new owner of the city I've just conquered. At some point, the Kuzaid town of Odok went rebel, I conquered it, then sold it to an Aserai lord for 300k and one of his castles. That castle was then sold to another lord for 217k and one of his castles, which can be sold for another 100k. All in all, I got 600,000 dinars from conquering just one rebel town, although finding the right buyers took quite a bit of effort and mostly luck. I am of course hoping that Odok will rebel again at some point, so I can repeat the process. Alternatively, you may keep the town and build it up using a skilled governor, turning it into a thriving trade hub where you establish profitable workshops, or use it as a staging ground for your raiding party. When I get to this point, I'm in no rush to build my own kingdom. What I do instead is look for a city I really like, such as Ortizia, seek out its owner and give him as many towns and gold as he requires in exchange. If I have the opportunity, I also purchase the surrounding castles. Tubilis, Garantor, Thractore, and Oristochores because the villages bound to them will take their produce into my town. making it the wealthiest trade hub in all of Calradia. At this point, I have two main options. If I've chosen the path of the mostly peaceful trader, I'll simply squash any other rebellions that pop up, claim those towns for myself, build them back up using my sister's excellent governor skills, and rake in the daily tax revenue while my many caravans and workshops generate massive passive income. But if I feel particularly devious, I'll launch an unprovoked attack against the Aserai and start raiding their caravans, and if they send armies against my castles, use the improviser perk to force my way past their troops and into my forts, and use their defenses to crush the invaders and make bank from all the loot I've collected. But when that gets old, you might actually consider conquering the whole continent, and for that, you will need to join an existing kingdom or establish your own faction. You could try to do it on your own, with just your party of 200 soldiers, but being in a kingdom allows you to summon the banners into a proper army, as well as recruiting other clans to be your vassals. I won't talk about that particular aspect of being part of a kingdom. Instead, I'll teach you how to use your real estate trader license to make a whole lot of money. Let's say you join a kingdom as a vassal. Whenever your faction conquers a town or a castle, the Greater Council will have to choose its happy new owner by voting on the top 3 picks. The lords who don't have a lot of fiefs are usually in that top 3, and since you just joined, you have none. So spend however much influence you need in order to tip the scales in your favor, and the king might just select you to receive the new castle or town that's just been conquered. If you keep this one, your chances of being voted on in the next election cycle will decrease, but will still be there. Once you have 3 or more fiefs, you might not make it to top 3 anymore, but that's not a problem because you will seek out wealthy buyers, preferably from other factions, and sell them the fiefs you've just received from your king. Ideally, you've remembered to empty their garrisons, so they're easier to conquer next time you're at war with the faction you just sold these forts to. And whoa, what's this? You don't have a fief? Guess who's going to have their next votes secured next time your faction captures new territory? That's right, you. Best part is, you don't even have to participate in those sieges or be anywhere close. You can let your fellow countrymen do all the work while you seek out your new buyer. For some reason, nobody questions how or why those fiefs keep changing owners, so you may keep up this hustle for as long as you want, but not without consequences. What consequences? I'll let you find out for yourself. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Just enjoy the money. And remember to show some appreciation if you've found this lesson helpful thus far. But one day, your king might lose his life and you may end up on the throne. Or maybe you're already the king because you've chosen to create your own faction. Whatever the case, this is the pinnacle of playing politics in the land of Calradia. In order to create your own faction, you will need to claim a seat. The way I've done it was by purchasing the town of Saneopa and designating it as my capital city, as well as the castles surrounding it. I then assigned my dear wife to govern this town and told her it's time to take a momentous step and establish our own kingdom. The Dominion. Not a very creative name, I know, but it fits. As soon as I did, the Western Empire declared war on me, but I held my ground and defended my castles as they were being besieged. It was not easy, but we prevailed against multiple armies, and I imprisoned the nobles that attacked me. If I were like other Bannerlords, I would have lopped off their heads, but honestly, I'd rather convert an entire clan to my cause in one fell swoop, instead of hunting down all its members and executing them all. So I asked the Archons in my dungeons, who wants to be free and join the best kingdom on this continent? Most of them said they're happy with their current liege because they still held territory in the Emperor's name. But those who became good friends of mine were open to the idea, and it didn't take much convincing. They did ask for a certain assurance, which can come in the form of a fief or money. I chose to give them cold hard cash. A lot of it. Millions. But I had plenty to spare from all my previous business dealings, and some of them even brought their cities with them, turning the balance of power even further in my favor. Soon enough, I had enough lords to form a strong army with, and after defending my forts from a few more attacks, we began conquering territory. Now this is where the final trade perk shines. In fact, what I'm about to tell you is the whole reason I put this lesson together. Everything till now was merely an appetizer. As soon as we conquered our first town, because I'm the king, its ownership was automatically transferred to me, temporarily, for just a couple of days until my council votes on its next owner. So what do? I make sure the lord I just recruited is in my army, and then I sell this town to him. But can he afford it? Yes, silly, I gave him $1 million or $2 in order to get him to join. There is a slight problem for this lord, however. In 2 days, the council will vote on the actual owner of the town he just purchased, and if I were really greedy, I could vote for myself, basically scamming the poor lad out of his purchase. But I'm not that much of a bad guy. If a vassal bribes me for a town, I will side with him no matter what, if he gets into the top 3. When your kingdom is small, this'll be no problem, but if your faction starts looking like mine, many of these lords will be thoroughly disappointed. Don't worry though, I look out for my fervent supporters and everybody gets at least a couple of fiefs. Basically, thanks to the final trade perk, I can spend millions recruiting lords, and then get those millions back by selling them towns that I wouldn't own anyway. Making the path of the rogue trader the most sustainable way to maintain and grow a massive empire. And when my vassals run out of money, I simply ask for their castles instead. I give them temporary ownership of a town in exchange for permanent ownership of their forts. Since the towns I sell are a lot more valuable than whatever they pay, I consider it a bribe given to me in exchange for my ultimate vote on election day. I've done this many times throughout my campaign, and if I didn't have this trick up my sleeve, I would have gone bankrupt after recruiting 5 clans into my kingdom. As you can see, at the moment, I have slightly more than 5. But this doesn't only serve me. Even with limited resources, I could wage a war of annihilation against all of the factions, one by one, and eventually conquer the whole continent, but that is not my only goal. I know it doesn't look like it, but I'm actually trying to save lives here and preserve entire bloodlines. If I just recklessly destroy every faction, the clans that are part of that faction will disband and go into exile, if not worse. But since I can afford to recruit rival clans into my own empire, those that choose to bend the knee survive the inevitable fall of their former kingdoms. Obviously, there are some who spit in my face and squander the opportunity I've graciously given them. So they will have to be let go gently into the night. But most will be left standing by the time my dominion holds the continent in its iron grip. And when I'm done with everything, my kingdom will be the only one on the face of the continent, with my clan being the heralds of a new age of peace and prosperity for all the people of Calradia. As for the nobility, those who took up my offer will have saved their clans and become the stewards of their respective parts of the continent. Battanian lords will rule Battanian towns, the Asurai will watch over the desert, the Khuzaids will dominate the steppe, and everyone will have their place in my world. As it should be, except no more petty squabbling. But that is a story for another time, because today's lesson is concluded. I hope you've found it helpful. For now, I shall take a break from Calradia. I've already booked a one-way ticket through time and space towards 15th century Bohemia, and if I dilly-dally here any longer, I'll miss my flight. I hope to one day have a good reason to return here, because I have so many more things to teach you about life on this continent. But for now, we're done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.